So per usual, if you want to speak English, select English. If you want to listen in French, please select the French from the translation. And we welcome you all for joining us for the final session of the Tuesday sessions. We're still going to have optional Thursday sessions throughout the month so that people can continue to learn from different entrepreneurs within the Land Accelerator Network on different topics. So keep joining for Thursday as we go forward. We are excited that people have started to submit some applications, and we're excited about what we're going to hear today. So today's topic, we're going to hear from Darby Levin from WRI, and then towards the end, we're going to have some remarks and some remarks from a few of the other leadership at WRI, and then we might close with some feedback from you all guys, round robin and networking style. But before we get started, or as we get started, definitely want to direct everybody. I'm doing too much today. I need to find the link for today's program and I don't have it. If anybody else happens to have it, I'd welcome it. But I need to put the link to the chat. We've got a poll to get you guys kicked off. And I do need to take a couple seconds. So maybe Darby, you can introduce yourself while I look for that poll link. Sorry about that. I think I've almost got it anyhow.
Sure, that's no problem. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Darby Levin. I work for the World Resources Institute on the Global Restoration Initiative, and specifically I'm part of the monitoring team. I'm super excited to be joining a Land Accelerator session because I've heard so much about the amazing work that the Land Accelerator is doing and the amazing work that the cohort is doing. So I'm really excited to be here and to get to share some of the work that my team has been doing and hear your guys' experiences. I'll pass it back to Amanda.
All right, guys, so we've got the poll live, and I hope that people here are able to click onto it. I'm just going to start to share a couple of things, and then let me see. I'm going to first share my screen. And there we go. And put onto present mode. So please check the chat box. And we've got 37 votes so far. So I want to thank everybody. And as more votes are coming in, check that chat box to add your voice to the mix. And you can also access the presentation by looking at the QR code that's on the screen now too. So if you happen to be joining us from a laptop and have your cell phone ready, go ahead and take a shot of that, and that will allow you to vote on your cell phone as well. So far, I don't know, Darby, if you wanted to go through what you're seeing as some of the answers right now yourself.
Yeah, no problem. And I just did see in the chat that someone was requesting to share the link again. That might be helpful.
It's been shared right now. Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, this is really great to see. So yeah, today's topic is going to be monitoring, and specifically, so my background is in restoration monitoring. So that's the lens that I'm going to be. And I know that a lot of the projects that you're working on are restoration focused, or a lot of the companies that you're working on, have kind of a restoration component to them. So I recognize that might not be the forefront or the focus of everyone's projects. So please feel free to put questions in the chat. We're going to have a Q&A at the end. I'd love to talk about how this can be adapted to goals that are kind of similar, but not exactly the same as biophysical restoration. But this is great to see that a lot of folks have some amount of experience with restoration monitoring. I'm also excited that this is new for some people. I think that, if you haven't necessarily had experience with restoration monitoring, I feel like it's likely that you have experience that is really relevant, and that will be really helpful in this conversation, and hopefully the Q&A we can have at the end. So that's great to hear.
So yeah, so we're seeing that this topic seems pretty new for many people who are on the call today. So far, 55 people participated in the survey. And so I think that will be really exciting. And even for the people who have experience, I think just from being on the group these past 11 weeks, that people who even have experience will be interesting to hear about the different tools that we'll be going over today. So if the next slide, let's see if I can get to that, is different words that you associate with the term restoration monitoring. I wonder, Darby, if you want to talk about any that are standing out to you there.
Yeah, well, this is, and I apologize actually because I'm not a French speaker. So I unfortunately am not able to know all of these words that are being shared, but one that stands out to me is suivi. Is anyone able to translate that? Because that's one of the largest words that I'm seeing here.
It's monitoring. Suivi is monitoring in English.
And I guess in the meantime, I can also look it up, but some things that are standing out
Darby,
to me.
so it's, you needed to select English, so you might want to select English on your, if you're able to. Joelle responded and said it means monitoring. That's what suivi means. It means monitoring.
That's really great to know. Thank you.
So a reminder for everybody who needs to hear English, please select English, because you'll be able to hear tidbits that you won't be able to hear if you don't select that. Thanks.
I'm seeing regeneration. I'm seeing tree planting. One thing I see is eager to learn, which I really, really like, because I think that is the spirit of monitoring. It's all about learning and being able to act on what we've learned. Let's see, I see carbon sequestration. So I think that is something that a lot of times people are interested in when it comes to monitoring. I see ecosystems, so monitoring can look very different in different ecosystems. I see performance tracking. So to me, that goes along with the eager to learn, right? Like we're eager to learn, and the reason for it is because we want to do even better and to update, the work that we're doing to be even more effective. I see, let's see, quantifiable. That's really important, and we're going to talk about that later. But I would say that monitoring, both things that are more qualitative or more narrative, that's important, but it is also very important to be able to have qualitative data that you can monitor, so you can really measure, are things improving? Are things getting worse? Hopefully not, but that's important to know. Yeah, thank you all. Feel free to keep them coming. This is really interesting to see. And then are we able to move maybe to the next slide?
I just wanted to say, like, usually some word clouds have like a few really big words. I think something that's interesting about this word cloud is that there's so much diversity in what people think about when they're talking about monitor or thinking about monitoring and evaluation.
Great. And then, the last question that I was interested in is if you're currently monitoring your project's impact. And that's really awesome to see that so many people are. I feel like that's something that's really difficult to do. It's not trivial. So that, I would say really congratulations on the amazing work that you're already doing. And, if you're not, or you're not certain, that's okay too. Monitoring is really hard. I'm on a team that's trying to create a monitoring system right now, and it's a struggle. And so it's not, you don't need to be doing it perfectly already. But this is a great time to start thinking about monitoring and how it might be able to help you.
And then I had a couple more slides. I think they were open-ended questions, and I just want to share them with the group, and we can probably go back to those following your discussion, Darby. But just so that I can highlight that people can put in their voices to this. Questions that you have around restoration monitoring, put them in there at any time. And then I think the last one was, what do you hope to learn today? So we could probably go through that one, and then we can probably get started with your presentation. And thanks everybody for participating in this survey. And you can also continue to, like I said, participate throughout the session. And of course, we take questions via the chat box as well as at the end by raising hands and asking questions out loud too. So hoping to learn today how to track progress of my restoration projects, monitoring techniques, a template with monitoring restoration, importance of making monitoring restoration. Let's see. More about restoration, the meaning of restoration monitoring, designing a system, defining monitoring scope, and let's see. Oh, wow, we've got plenty of people here. De bonne technique, good techniques, or at least how can our agroforestry projects be shown to restore degraded forests? Let's see. A feasible plan, how to articulate our restoration work, measure progress and improve impact, tree population census, different tools used in monitoring. So I might want to invite if Joelle or Patrick can share any key phrases that might have been shared with us in French that you might see on the screen. If you can share that with us in the English channel so that we can hear some of the French ideas. I'm seeing at least 3 on this slide now.
If you could highlight, if you could put the arrow where you want me to interpret.
Okay.
So I think it's, yeah.
Okay.
Everything about monitoring restoration of restoration.
Okay.
Taking part to the next steps and being aware of the opportunities. To assess, measure, and know the monitoring points.
Thank you so much. And let's see if we have a few more up here.
The various components of monitoring of restoration and what is the right duration for monitoring of restoration.
Let's see. Anyone else? Let's try this one.
The tools and techniques used to determine the success rate of monitoring forest, an activity of monitoring forest.
And I think this one is one more.
Managing a restoration project.
Okay, that sounds great. And before we go any further, Darby, I think that you can take as long as you need. I think we're at 15 minutes past, so you can go up to the hour or a little bit longer, a little bit shorter. I honestly would just do as long as the presentation takes, as long as the question and answer takes, because we can be flexible on the back end. So with that, I will stop sharing and invite Darby to go forward.
Okay. Thank you so much, Amanda and Joel. Let me just share my screen. Okay, is everyone able to see the screen?
Yeah, yes, and now it's in full screen.
All right, perfect. So yeah, once again, thank you so much, Amanda, Fabiana, the rest of the Land Accelerator cohort for inviting me here to speak. Today, we're going to talk about monitoring for impact and the Restoration Monitoring Tools Guide. And so I would like to also thank, my team members that worked on this project with me. Katie Raytar, also from the World Resources Institute, Jillian Gladstone, Milena Dyke, and Sarah Cottle from Climate Focus, and as well as our partners and contributors who were absolutely instrumental to this work. So a couple of things to talk about before we dive in. I just want to go over what are the main topics that I was hoping to cover today. The first is why monitoring is important. And we saw a lot of that in that word cloud at first, and I would encourage you to think about like your own specific reasons that monitoring is important for your projects. And we can talk about that at the end in the Q&A. What is a successful monitoring system and what are the key components to make something a successful monitoring system? What are the challenges that are associated with monitoring? And then to introduce a website called the Restoration Monitoring Tools Guide, which is intended to help give a bit of a map of the landscape of different tools that are available to help monitor restoration, and hopefully help people connect with tools that can be helpful for them. And then to leave some time for Q&A and for people to share their experiences as well. So first of all, why is monitoring important? Why should we monitor restoration? And again, here, I'm going to be talking about a restoration context. I know that a lot of the work that you're doing, restoration might be a goal, but there may be other goals as well. So I think a lot of this is relevant to other goals besides restoration. But so one really important thing is that in order to demonstrate that an intervention is effective in restoring the landscape, we can't really say that unless we have a way of monitoring that intervention, like making sure that the intervention is happening successfully, and then also measuring outcomes and making sure that those outcomes are supporting restoration. Another way that this can help us is in order to make a business like as successful as it can be, we need to understand where interventions are and are not working in order to scale up that business, scale up those interventions, and make sure that we're using techniques that are successful, and maybe changing strategies where techniques aren't being as successful. Another really big reason that monitoring is important is it can help build trust between funders and implementers. And what this often comes down to is gaining access to additional funding or credit. So an example of that is, if you're applying for funding or applying for a loan, being able to demonstrate that, you monitor the work that you do and you are able to show very concrete success in the past is likely to help get access to additional funding or additional credit to expand the business and achieve even more impact. Sorry, there we go. So what is a restoration monitoring system? So we have this definition here, a system that allows decision makers and practitioners to measure positive or negative changes in an area of interest to gauge the success of restoration interventions against specific goals in a manner that's repeated and consistent over time. That's kind of a lot of words. So let's break that down a little bit more. So first of all, it's a system. It's not, something that you're going to do once and be done with forever. It's not something, it's something that ideally you want to plan for from the beginning of your project and just really think through a holistic way that allows you to look at the changes and the goals you want to look at. So who is it for? Or who uses a restoration monitoring system? So ideally, it is decision makers and practitioners. So people who have a vested interest in understanding if a business, what a business's impact is, if the business is achieving the intended impact, and who are able to have the power to make decisions and change things based on the results of that monitoring. Where is monitoring system done? So it should be focused on a specific area of interest. And that area can be as small as, a single plot of land, a single farmer's field, or as large as a watershed, a district, a country, or even a whole region. And what is it that's being measured? So these should be specific goals that are established towards the beginning of the project. When you're in that planning stage, you should be thinking about what is your goal, what is the intended outcome that you want to achieve, and thinking of ways to measure progress against those specific goals. And then finally, your frequency. So monitoring, like I said before, is not something that happens once and is done forever. It's a process that has to be repeated over time. And so the big, kind of takeaway from that is, why are we doing this? There are two big questions that we're really trying to answer with a monitoring system. One is, are the identified goals of this project or this business being met, or are they on track to be met? And number two, what needs to be done differently if not? And this changes monitoring from something that is static or not very relevant to something that is useful and can help you shape your business to achieve even more impact and make sure that you're accomplishing the goals you set out to accomplish. So, restoration monitoring system, there's no one size fits all solution. It's going to have to be different based on the individual characteristics of your business, your project, the landscape you're working in, the scale you're working at. Everything has to be tailored to fit your specific goals and project. But there are some common essential steps that are going to be key to make sure that you have a successful monitoring system that can give you a holistic picture of what's happening and are you achieving your goals. So I'm going to go through them at a high level here, and then we're going to go through them in a little more depth, one by one, with some examples of tools that you can use to perform these steps of the monitoring system. So first is defining your area of interest. It's important to be specific in doing this because that allows you to really focus in on the places you're working and to identify your impact versus, other external factors that might be affecting things. The second is establishing a clear and consistent set of indicators. So this is how you measure progress towards your goal. And these need to be things that can be measured. The third is establishing a baseline. So if you aren't measuring, if you don't know what a landscape looked like before you started working in it, you can't truly understand how things have changed as a result of your project. The fourth thing is collecting sustainable and reproducible input data. So again, monitoring is something that's repeated over time. And in order to have the resources and capacity in order to keep repeating this monitoring, you need to make sort of decisions and trade-offs between all the information in the world that you would like to collect versus what you can sustainably commit to collecting over time. And then the last component is reporting results. So if we just collect all of this data for a monitoring system and then, sit on it and don't do anything with it, there really isn't a point. So if we want to be able to use the results and the information that we gather, we need to collect it into a way that can be shared or analyzed or acted upon. And so this is why reporting results is very important.
If I can just intervene for 1 second, Darby, I just want to bring this back to the session that I was leading last week, that a lot of this is there. And so now we're basically going deeper and talking about different tools that can give you some of that content. So when we were talking about creating an impact plan from last week, and you might have filled out those surveys, we talked about many different ways that you can show those results, whereas finding specific KPIs to put on your website, having photos, having maps, making an actual report and linking the PDF on your web page, adding some of these results to your pitch deck. So all these are different things that you can do. So just wanted to bring it back to last week and kind of show the continuation. Please go ahead, Darby.
Yeah, thanks so much, Amanda. Please feel free to jump in if there are any other good linkages to other sessions. So to sort of start diving a little more deeply into some of these. So the first important step is defining your area of interest. So this is clearly defining a geographic boundary of the restoration area or the area that you are aiming to impact to ensure spatial accuracy and consistency over time. So like I said before, in order to accurately understand how you are affecting the area where you work, you need to have a good understanding of where you are working. And this can look very different depending on the scale and the need for precision. So it might be, you might be looking more generally at how things are changing across an entire district or across a watershed. Or if you are working very specifically with certain smallholder farmers, it might be really important to know the exact boundaries of the land that the smallholder farmers are working on. Or if you're working with an indigenous community or tribal community, to know the boundaries of the land that, you know, that is tribal land or indigenous land. So you can know exactly where you are working. And finally, a boundary can be created in different ways. You know, of course, it's important to be working with the people on whose land you are working to make sure that that boundary accurately represents what is happening in the real world. And this boundary can be created digitally using various geographic information system software, or it can be collected in the field, or sometimes a combination of the two, where the boundary is initially collected in the field and then cleaned up using a software. And so one example of a tool that can be used for this part of a monitoring system is Google Earth. So this is an example where we have some boundaries of where tree planting is being done that we want to in the future monitor, you know, indicators such as tree cover, the number of trees, you know, and maybe other indicators as well. And so on Google Earth, you can use it to draw these pretty specific boundaries using high resolution satellite imagery. And then these boundaries can be saved and they can be used in the future for different analysis or for sharing on a map to show exactly where you're working. This is one example of a tool that can be used to do the step of creating a boundary. So the next step of a monitoring system is establishing a clear and consistent set of indicators. So these are things that are measured over time to determine the extent to which your objectives are being met. So indicators allow you to measure progress towards your goals. And it's important to pick these based on your objectives. So determining like what are the most important outcomes of your project and your business and your intervention, and then picking indicators that correspond to those objectives. And these indicators should be measurable with the resources that you have, and they should have clearly defined metrics. So one example is if, you know, my intervention is tree planting and my goal is to increase you know, the number of trees in a forest is to do reforestation. Maybe I want to, you know, my goal is to increase the tree cover from, you know, 5% to 30%. And then I have a clearly defined metric of tree cover that I can use in order to measure progress towards my goal. And a recommendation is instead of, there are kind of an infinite number of indicators that you can use in order to show progress towards these goals, but we would suggest selecting a few core indicators to focus on. And this just allows you to use resources in the most cost-effective way to focus on the indicators that are most important to showing your progress. And so an example of a tool that can be used for this is called Aurora. And so Aurora is a tool to help identify the goals that you want to monitor. And then once you've identified those goals, to narrow in on indicators that can be used to show progress towards those goals. So for example, in the climate set, so this, the way that Aurora is set up is that you have this restoration wheel, which kind of focuses on different
Donc,
themes.
vous avez cette restauration ligne qui permet de
Yeah, so it focuses on different themes of
vous
restoration.
focaliser
So, for
sur les
example, in the
différentes
climate theme,
Sorry, really quick.
réalisations.
We're having an issue with interpretation. Patrick, it seems you're speaking in
Alors,
the English channel, maybe.
Okay, let's try and go on. I think he might have fixed his button.
Yeah, so we have these different themes. Within the themes are different specific categories. And once you select the categories that, or the goals that are most important to you, so let's say I'm interested in the climate theme and my goal is mitigation, then you are able to select from suggested indicators, which are measurable metrics. So for example, an indicator for mitigation might be the amount of carbon dioxide or CO2 that is sequestered, in maybe tons per hectare. And as we can see, this is important for biophysical goals, such as soil quality or climate mitigation or food production, but it's also really important for social and economic goals, such as ensuring that communities have access to income or to important health like metrics, or to ensuring the protection of cultural practices and values. So monitoring is not only for biophysical indicators, it's also extremely important for cultural and social and economic indicators as well. So next, the next big step is to establish a baseline for these chosen indicators prior to restoration activities. And this is really, really important because it allows an accurate comparison of change over time in order to see what impact you are having. You need to know what things look like before you started working in that space. And this is really important because it might impact your options for how you measure your indicators. If you can't establish a baseline using that indicator or using that data source, then you're probably not going to be able to use that data source for measuring progress over time. And I don't have an example for that yet, and I'll explain why in just a second. So the next important step is collecting sustainable and reproducible input data for your monitoring system. So as part of a monitoring system, you're going to be going back and remeasuring these indicators at a certain frequency that makes sense for you and your project. And this is the kind of the main part of a monitoring system. This is where you are understanding what change is happening over time. And the reason that I didn't provide an example of a tool for the previous step, which is setting a baseline, is because the same tools that you use to set your baseline, you will also probably use to collect your reproducible input data. And so this data should allow you to calculate each of your metrics. It's going to be done at consistent time intervals to track your progress. And what the frequency is highly dependent on your project, your resources. Maybe you have the resources and the project is really fast moving, and so it makes sense to collect data every quarter. Or maybe, it's a intervention that takes more time, like trees are very slow growing. So maybe it makes sense to track your progress annually or every 2 years. It's really important to think about the time and budget that's available for this data collection. For example, some types of data collection methodologies are more cost intensive and more labor intensive. and are harder to repeat. But those also tend to give you more precise and accurate results. For example, going into the field to collect data. So you have to balance what is going to give you the most precise results versus what you are going to be able to sustain over time in order to have that consistent measure of progress. And so I have a couple examples here. One is of a tool called Collect Mobile, which is used to collect data in the field. So this is a mobile app that can be used offline, and it can be used to collect information on things such as tree planting or agroforestry, where you can collect information such as a GPS point showing where a tree has been planted, its species, what land use it's being planted on, or for what purpose it's being planted. And you can return to these locations at different time intervals to see if those trees, how many of them are surviving, if they're growing. And so this is an example of a field collection methodology that is pretty labor intensive. However, it is going to yield very, very accurate and precise results. And another example of a way of collecting repeated input data is Global Forest Watch. So this is a remote sensing data collection methodology. And so Global Forest Watch is a website that has many different data sets that are relevant to land cover, land use, and land change. And so this is an example of a data set on tree cover gain, and you can upload a boundary. So this goes back to that first step of the restoration monitoring system, which is delineating a precise boundary. You can upload a boundary and you can see in certain years how much tree cover gain there has been or how much tree cover loss there has been in this area of interest. And so this methodology, because it's using remote sensing data, it is less labor intensive, it's less cost intensive. However, it's not going to be as precise or as accurate as going into the field will be. So it's all a bit of a balance. And then finally, the last step is reporting results. So this is basically just collecting the information in a way that is useful to you and useful to other decision makers that you care about. So this can be used for purposes such as adaptive management. So figuring out which interventions or which areas of your business are working really well and which are not working well, and making decisions on how you want to change your approach based on that. It can also be used to increase transparency and build trust with funders, as well as communicating the work that you are doing, applying for funding, applying for grants or loans, and hopefully expanding the impact of your business. And so an example of this, actually Amanda gave some good examples that were included in the last session, but an example of a tool that is included in the tool finder is Map Builder, which is a product that allows you to upload, again, your own boundaries, your own data sets, and as well as making use of data sets that are already included as part of Map Builder to visually show what is happening where. So this is showing different protected areas and how land use is changing within protected areas and where forest is being lost or gained within protected areas in Malaysia. Another example of a way to report progress is going back to Aurora. So if you remember, Aurora is a tool that allows you to select the goals that are most important and to pick metrics to measure progress towards those goals. And so Aurora also produces a report based on that, showing overall how close you are to achieving your desired impact or your desired goals. So in this example, we have a mitigation target, and a specific metric being to increase above ground biomass stock from 50 to 100 kilograms per hectare. And we can see that we've reported, as of this report, 80 kilograms per hectare is the amount of biomass stock in that area. And so we can see we are getting close, but not quite at that target yet. And so Aurora allows you to combine multiple different metrics, such as soil health and biodiversity, to show an overall overall how much progress you've made towards your goal. So we can see that this project is making good progress, but they still have a good ways to go. So there's a lot of challenges of restoration monitoring, and I'd encourage you to think about the specific challenges that you faced with your projects. But some that come up a lot in the projects that I've worked with are that monitoring can be cost and labor intensive. So, it's hard to make sure, you obviously want to use most of your resources for actually implementing your projects, like putting resources into your business. And it can be hard to carve out the cost and the time in order to spend on monitoring. Another challenge is that restoration often happens really slowly. And so it can be tough to show that progress is happening when that progress is not instantaneous. And then another challenge that we've experienced a lot is there has been an explosion of different tools and guidebooks and methodologies to help people monitor their restoration projects or their businesses that are, have restoration goals over the last few years. However, there can be a lack of clarity on which tools are best for which circumstances and how to put those tools together into a system that gets you, to where you need to go. And so that was what inspired our team from WRI, Climate Focus, as well as other organizations to work on the Restoration Monitoring Tools Guide. So the Tools Guide is a website that is designed to provide an overall, introduction to restoration monitoring, as well as giving a map of the landscape of what tools are out there, and helping connect people with tools that fit their needs. So I'm going to segue now into a live demo of the website. But just before I get into that, so there are a couple of overall objectives of the Tools Guide. The first is what the presentation that I just gave, basically. So talking about what restoration monitoring is, why it's important, and introducing the essential steps that are going to be necessary for any restoration monitoring system, no matter what scale or landscape or context it's in. The second is to provide an overview of the variety of available tools to monitor restoration and help people identify which tools fit their needs. And so that is the tool finder that we're going to do a walkthrough of in just a minute. And then the final main objective of the Tools Guide is to illustrate how restoration monitoring tools can be used in real world scenarios. And so this is done through the use of some case studies and some articles that show examples of how different both businesses and nonprofits have used monitoring tools to show their impact. And just a quick caveat when we're talking about this Tools Guide. So of course, monitoring is not only important, on land, there's also like aquatic and riparian monitoring, but we focus specifically on terrestrial ecosystems, on land-based monitoring, just because that is where we had the expertise and where we were able to, where the majority of the tools are focused for now, but potentially in the future, we'll be able to expand this. We also wanted to focus on tools that are currently available and that people could use right now. So there are some tools that are maybe coming down the pike that weren't included in this iteration of the guide yet because they aren't available to be used yet. Another thing is we wanted these tools to be able to be applied to many geographies without modifying them significantly. So if a tool was hyper focused on just a single landscape, we didn't think it would necessarily be helpful to to everyone. So we wanted to focus on tools that were flexible. And then the tool needed to be capable of performing at least one of those steps of a restoration monitoring system. So with that, I'm going to go to the Tools Guide website and do a quick walkthrough of the website and of the tool finder, and then we can shift into our Q&A. I know I'm a little bit behind on time, but so this is the
You're fine
restoration
on time. Yeah, you're fine on
Okay.
time. Do a complete job. That'll be great.
Okay, thank you. So this is the Restoration Monitoring Tools Guide, and just a brief overview of the website. So the first main objective is talking about what restoration monitoring is and why it's important. So, we have here some articles that are covering a lot of the same ground that I covered in the presentation, such as what the essential steps for effective restoration monitoring is, as well as additional resources. If you are interested in finding more information on restoration monitoring, these additional resources are a really great place to start. We also have a section that
Darby,
is
sorry,
talking.
are you currently sharing the website? We're still seeing the presentation.
Oh, no, I'm so sorry. Yes, let me switch my screen sharing. Thank you so much. Are you able to see the website now?
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up. I appreciate it. Okay, I apologize, everyone. So this is the website. And I'm going to just give a brief overview of the main sections of the website and then jump into the tool finder, which is kind of the central part of the website. So the different bits of the website correspond to those three major goals I talked about. The first is just introducing what restoration monitoring is, why it is important, and kind of how to do it at a more general scale. So you can see here the same presentation that I gave on what are the essential steps for effective restoration monitoring, as well as links for finding more information on restoration monitoring. So these links are a great place to start looking for additional resources on how to create a monitoring system that works for your specific context. Another main goal of this website is to give some real-world examples of how nonprofits and businesses have used the tools that are included in this guide to show their impact. So we have here links to various case studies showing how different organizations use different tools that are mentioned in this guide in order to show their impact. And we tried to have case studies from a variety of geographies, a variety of project scales, from very small scale to, large, like country scale goals, just in order to provide some inspiration for the ways that different organizations have already done this. And then finally, the biggest part of the website is the tool finder. So this is intended if you are trying to create a restoration monitoring system and you want to create something that is tailored to fit your project and your needs, and you want to find tools that are already out there that can help you do these different steps of a monitoring system. This is what the tool finder is intended to help you do. So I'm going to do a walkthrough of the tool finder and how you would use it. So the first step, it's an interactive questionnaire. And the first step is selecting if you would like to perform monitoring, kind of creating your own monitoring system using self-guided tools, or if you are interested in service providers that provide monitoring systems as a service. So these can be helpful to look at in order to get an understanding of what a holistic system can look like. And if you would rather sort of join a program or pay for a service to provide this monitoring wholesale. And a lot of these are really helpful and good services, but they are also not always immediately accessible. Often you need to either apply to join a program or pay to use a service. So while they can be really helpful, the majority of the tool finder focuses on tools that you can use yourself in order to create a monitoring system that is tailored to your project or your business. So the next step is deciding which step of the monitoring system you need a tool to help you do. So maybe, for your project boundary, you already know your project boundary. You've already drawn that, you've already established that. So maybe you don't need help with that. However, you are interested in figuring out from the goals that you have, which indicators are going to make the most sense to help you monitor. So you would select indicators to monitor and continue to the next page. And so what you will get is a page showing all the tools that are currently included in the guide that meet that help you perform this step of a monitoring system. So here we can see Aurora is the first tool that is listed: assessment, understanding, and reporting of restoration actions. That's what Aurora stands for. And you can see here a quick section showing what you can use this tool to do. So Aurora helps you select priority monitoring indicators based on your objectives, to assess the quality of the indicators and to report your progress. It also shows you what the end products of using this tool are. So when I use Aurora, I end up with this customized framework of targets and indicators, and I end up with a downloadable PDF report that I could download and share with my funders or share on my website. And so this is intended to let you know what you get out of each tool so you can combine them together into a system that meets all of your needs. We also include some additional information about the tool, such as what scale it is intended to be used at, like a small scale, a larger scale, the technical skills and resources that are required to use that tool, if it has any costs, and what languages it's available in. And you're able to see, so we have 3 tools that are able to help select indicators. So I'm going to go back to the previous page just to say I wanted to collect data for my indicators. So this data could either be my baseline data or it could be my repeated data to do monitoring. And so we have 2 major ways to collect data. One is going into the field, and the other is collecting data for indicators remotely. So I'm going to select, I want to go into the field and collect data. So again, here we can see a list of apps or tools that could be used for collecting data in the field. Collect Mobile is the first. These are just in alphabetical order. Another is the Regreening app. So this is an app that you can collect geolocated data on tree planting, on farmer managed natural regeneration, nursery development, and capacity development. And what you end up with is a record of the different locations you've been to, and any number of data that you collect at those locations, such as the type of tree species, the height of a tree, what that tree is being used for, what farmer that tree belongs to, the land cover, the management practices that are being used. And so if you are interested in seeing all of the tools that are available in the guide, you can click on the View All Tools button. And on this page, you are able to filter by additional things that might help you make a decision. So for example, you can filter by which language, so we can see which of these tools are available in French, and many of them are. We can also filter by scale. So we define scale here as being, this is not a cut and dry distinction, but site is tools that are appropriate for use at smaller scales. They might be more labor intensive to use or collect, but they're probably going to be more precise, versus tools that are appropriate at the landscape scale. So these are tools that can be used across larger areas. However, if you have a very, very small site, these larger scale tools may not be as precise as you need. So this is another helpful way of filtering based on the scale that you're trying to work at. And finally, you can go to any tool that you are interested in, such as the land degradation surveillance framework. So that is a walkthrough of, I'm going to switch back to the PowerPoint now. Let's see, are we able to see the PowerPoint? I apologize, I'm having a little bit of trouble getting back to.
No, we're there. Yeah, yeah, don't worry about that.
All right, great. So yes, that is the sorry, I apologize. So that was a walkthrough of the restoration monitoring tools guide and the tool finder. And so today we've talked about what restoration monitoring is, what the essential components of a restoration monitoring system are, and some ways of finding tools that can help you achieve each of the steps in this restoration monitoring system, all with the goal of understanding where are your interventions having the intended impact, and where are they not, and if your interventions are not having their intended impact, how can we change them to make sure that you are having your intended impact? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Q&A, and I guess I will ask Amanda for how much time we have for Q&A.
I think that we can probably do 10 or so minutes of that. And I see Tundi with his hand up right now, so we might just go straight to him. Tundi, would you like to unmute yourself?
Yes, thank you very much. This is a very wonderful and revealing session. I've been having a lot of challenges in the past with how you can actually, get quality data for your restoration impact. My question is, when it comes to trees, maybe the numbers of trees you've planted. For example, maybe you're trying to plant, maybe let's say the African fig tree. This takes a lot of years. Within that particular period of years, there could have been a lot of changes. Maybe even when it comes to the people you started the project with, and the project facing some challenges that actually maybe it could be it could even be human factor. Maybe people actually moving there. How do you keep track of projects that are kind of long term? That could take up to 5 to 10 years. So how do you actually get the impact? How do you get the right figure for how much impact you've made for projects, that span about 5 to 10 years. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tunde. That's a great question. I think one thing that you mentioned off the bat is just identifying to start how many years you plan to monitor for, like knowing I'm growing a slower growing species of tree, or my impact is not going to be felt for maybe like fully felt for 5 or 10 years. So just knowing that off the bat so you can plan for it. I would say also then, right, because people on a project change. So in order to measure your impact over that span of time, I think the most important thing would be setting up a central system where all this data is going to be kept. So say if you are going out and measuring those trees in the field using a mobile app, making sure that that data is coming back and being put in a central system so that even if people, who are working on the project change, you can still be going back to that same database or that same system to see the impact. I think also another important thing is choosing indicators that you can measure in the time period that you're interested in. So for example, in the first few years of looking at trees, you're not going to be able to see anything using remote sensing. The trees are just going to be too small. It's not going to help you show your impact. And so for the first few years, you might have to use indicators that are measured in the field and that measure maybe the process rather than the outcome. So things like measuring planting holes, or measuring returning to trees and using geotagged photos to see if they're still surviving. Whereas as you get further into the project, you can space out the monitoring intervals a little more and use transition to indicators such as remote sensing indicators like tree cover in order to use like less resources and be more sustainable in how you're using your resources, but still being able to show that impact now that the trees have grown large enough in order to see that impact. I apologize. Does that help answer?
Great, thank you.
Hey, Darby, we have a couple people with hands up. We also have a couple questions that came in the chat. So a lot of people, just to go from the chat, are interested in proving their impact or tools that help them count their impact. So for instance, we're looking at a couple of concerns. One is anything that can work on both mobile apps and then like connect and link with the desktop. I think that's features that people are looking for. We're also people are saying, how can I prove that I have a survival rate? Like I want to count my survival rate. This one comes from Grace. I want to count my survival rate. I need help counting it. How can I prove it? And some people were also interested in how can I prove how many trees per square meter I've planted? How can I build transparency? So I think people are looking for tools that help them build this transparency so they aren't just saying on their website, I have a 90% survival rate. I plant 200 trees per square meter, which is great, and they should know that, but are there tools that can help build this transparency for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. And also I appreciate, I think because I'm sharing my screen, I can't see.
You don't probably need to share your screen anymore.
So
yeah, you probably don't need to
Okay.
share your screen anymore. So if you want to take it down.
Yeah,
Because
I
that'll
can
make it
stop
easier for
sharing.
you.
But yeah, those are great questions. So as far as things that work on both mobile app and desktop, there are a lot of tools that do that. And we mentioned that in the tools guide, like whether it works on a mobile app, if you need internet access, if it works on a desktop. It really depends on what you're trying to do with that tool. But some that come off to mind off the top of my head is the Green Stand Tree Tracker app, which is another field app that helps record the locations of trees, as well as taking like a photo of those trees. So it's geotagged photos, as well as information on species, who has planted or is collecting the information on that tree. And so that is an app where you set up a project. Many different people can go out and use the mobile app in the field, and all that information gets sent back to a centralized database where you can see on a map the locations of all the different trees, and even click on the individual tree to see a picture of it and to see information about it. So that's an example. Another example is a tool called Kobo Toolbox, which is you can kind of design a customized survey on a desktop to collect the information that you are specifically interested in. So that could be similar things to the tree tracker, like tree species, tree height, tree diameter. But it could also be more qualitative information, like the farmer that this tree belongs to, or the intended use of the tree. Is it timber? Is it agroforestry? Is it reforestation? And then you can also go out in the field with a mobile app and collect data, individual data that is sent back to a centralized database. And so apps like that have both a mobile component for collecting data and then a desktop component for like looking at that data and collecting it all into a central place. I think that speaks actually to Tunde's question as well about how to deal with projects that go over a long span of time, because you still have that central location to collect all that data in. And then the other questions on proving a survival rate or proving the number of trees per square meter. Again, like the exact tool that is going to work for your situation depends on specific circumstances, like, you know, are you using Androids or iPhones? Which is another thing that we mention on the tool finder, is like if it works on only Android, only iPhone, or both. You know, what languages you're working in, or if you need the capability to work in you know, like in any language, to like write your own questions in any language, or, you know, how customized you need things to be. But I would say for things like survival rate or the number of trees per square meter, you kind of have two options. One option is going out into the field and collecting data using a mobile app, similar to the ones that I've mentioned, or the ones that are on the tools guide. And so a good example of that is the Green Stand Tree Tracker. You can go out and you can go to the same locations, you know, maybe every year, every 6 months, every 2 years, whatever makes sense for your project, and mark like which trees have survived, and so calculate a survival rate based on that, or your kind of your density of trees. However, the other way to do that is relying on remote sensing imagery, and so that would be using so that remote sensing imagery, you don't have to go into the field as much, which can be cost saving or resource saving. However, it can be difficult. You can't see things as early in the project. You usually have to wait maybe like 3 to 5 years before specifically trees start being visible using remote sensing imagery. But good option for using remote sensing imagery is Collect Earth or Collect Earth Online, which is a tool in the tools guide. And sorry, I just was looking at the chat. And so that is a desktop app that allows you to use high resolution satellite imagery in order to visually inspect locations. And for example, so the projects that I'm working on, we're using Collect Earth Online to count the number of trees that are in different restoration areas, and to see if that number of trees is increasing or decreasing over time. So that is a tool that could be used to calculate a survival rate or to calculate the number of trees per square meter. So I think it's really deciding if you want to go into the field or if you want to use your remote sensing imagery. Going into the field will probably take more resources, it's more labor intensive, and you may not be able to cover all of your area depending on how big your area is. You may need to do kind of a representative sample because you may not be able to visit all of your areas every time. However, it is more precise and you can start to see results a lot earlier. Or you can even measure like where trees have been planted before you could ever see those trees start to grow on satellite imagery. And then your other major option is remote sensing, which can be easier to repeat, but you are not able to see results as early in the process.
That was a lot, Darby.
Yeah, I'm so
I
sorry.
think we should listen to your recording again and again, to be quite honest, because I think that answer had a lot of really great knowledge there. So everybody, we do have the recordings, and you can probably skip ahead to our 1 hour, 12 minutes in and get a lot of really great value out of that response. I just wanted to acknowledge that it was really dense, and you can see all of the experience that you have, Darby. So really want to thank you once again. We have 3 people with their hands up. So probably in the interest of time, we'll go through those 3 questions. And if other people have additional questions, please throw them in the chat. We'll also put Darby's information on our Restore Forward page, which will come up by tomorrow, in case there's additional burning questions that we aren't able to answer. I see the order, I have it on my computer, and so I'm not sure if it's the order that it came in at, but we're going to go with this order for our 3 people who have questions. We'll go with Simon, then Dennis, and then Matthews. So if that sounds okay, I wonder if we could invite Simon to unmute himself for the question.
Hi, Amanda. Hi, Darby. Thank you so much for the opportunity to ask a question. Hope you can hear me well.
We can, yep.
All right. Yeah, my question was, how can I measure the impact, to monitor the impact on the restoration using in the beekeeping industry? And which one of the tools can be better for someone who is in the beekeeping industry to measure, to monitor the restoration impact? That was my main question. Thank you.
That's a great question. I'm really also, yeah, thank you so much for the question, Simon. I'm really interested in this because I will be honest, I don't have much experience with the beekeeping industry. So I think I would ask you the question back that, what is the impact you want to achieve? What are your major goals with restoration with the beekeeping industry?
Okay. What we do is, okay, can I go on?
Yeah, please.
All right. Yeah. What we do on the beekeeping as a Selbena company, the main focus is to help these farmers using beekeepers as a source of income, because before, the current situation is after the harvest season, they used to cut a tree to produce charcoal as a source of income. So we are emphasizing them to use beekeeping as a source of income, and those forests that they were used to cut to produce charcoal, then they used for beekeeping to put the hives on those forests. So that's the main goal that we do.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. And a couple of things immediately come to mind, and I feel like I'm guessing you probably thought of some of them, but I mean, the things that stuck out to me there were income, and then using beekeeping as a source of income instead of charcoal burning and cutting trees for charcoal. And so, I mean, the first thing is income. Like, probably talking to the farmers and seeing if their income is increasing. But then the other is tree cover, and seeing if tree cover is increasing or decreasing or holding steady in these areas where you're working. So, I mean, probably like figuring out for the scale that you're working at and for how often you want to return to these places and do this monitoring, probably figuring out a tool to use for counting the number of trees or looking at the tree cover and seeing if that tree cover or the tree cover loss is decreasing, or if the number of trees are increasing, would probably be a good, and I think that's also a really, really good example of how impact is not always immediately the same thing as the intervention, right? Because if the intervention is promoting beekeeping and helping farmers use beekeeping as a source of income, but the kind of like less cutting of trees is kind of a secondary impact that's really, really important. So just showing that the metrics that we want to measure are not always the same thing as what the first level goals are. So I think that's a really good example.
Yeah, I just want to second, I loved hearing about your business model, Simon. If you could just tell us what country you're coming from today.
From Tanzania.
All right, that sounds fantastic. Thanks for that amazing question. And I just want to go back to a concept that Darby shared with us today, which is identifying your area of interest. So if you know from the farmers you're working with, what areas they generally would be cutting trees from, that can be where you can take a look at, is the rate of tree deforestation slowing? You might have, that's another baseline question. What was the rate of deforestation? You might not know it, but these are the things that you're trying to show are changing. So maybe, you know, there's even statistics in the area about it, or maybe there's a different community where you haven't gotten to expand to yet, where you can see what the statistics of deforestation are and show that you're slowing that deforestation. Really cool, amazing, important income replacement business model. So that's awesome and very inspiring. Yes.
It's also what you said, Amanda, made me think of something which is right, important for baseline, right? Because you would want to know, like how many trees got cut for, for charcoal, like before you started working there. And so I talked a lot about very quantitative methods of monitoring, like going to the field and counting trees or using remote sensing. But I think also like, and I'm sure you do this a lot as part of your business model, but just talking to communities to understand the history of the landscape that you're working in, I think is also really important and just as valid of a source for monitoring. So it's not, it's not numbers, but being able to talk to people who know the history of that landscape and can give you can tell you the narrative of what that landscape was like beforehand, I think can also be an incredibly valuable way of understanding what was happening on the land before you started working there and how things are changing in the future.
All right, I think we should probably move to the next. We're going to have to move. Simon, I'm so sorry. We're going to have to move to the next questions just due to timing. So I saw the next person who was on there because we only have 3 questions left. So everybody else who has their hand raised, if you could please put your question in the chat box and we'll look to respond to that. So sorry, we've got Dennis followed by Matthews.
Thank you so much, Amanda and Darby. My question was, so I'm into dairy, and usually what I do is we doing agroforestry, where smallholder dairy farmers are supported with moringa trees. Now, basically, the trees are not like they are planted mixed in the farm. So I think my greatest dilemma is when I would want to understand or to quantify the total land that is being restored, like the hectareage. How do I know that? Because it's not like we covering the whole area with trees. We putting trees maybe along the boundaries and maybe inside the farm. So it's like I would want to know how I would get to quantify the total land restored. Should I look at the total land, the total hectareage, or how I need to be supported on that? And then I think the rest would be easy for me to follow. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question, Dennis. I feel like you've hit on one of the biggest questions in restoration monitoring, right? How many hectares are under restoration? And I think it's a really tough question. And this may sound like a bit of a avoidant answer, but I think it depends on how you define it. And so I think that means that for your project, you need to upfront decide, what is my definition going to be? So if you're working with, a lot of smallholder farmers, you're working on land that's being used for agroforestry, where trees are interspersed with crop systems, right? It's not just where the tree roots are touching that, that is impacting, right? Like if a farmer is having tree crops on their land, that might be affecting the land, immediately around where those trees are planting because of soil stability or nutrient retention, or, we talked about other business models where those where like there was income replacement intended to decrease deforestation. So I do think that it's important to have a definition that is not just the, like square meter of ground where the tree roots are touching. This is the land under restoration, because that's really not what restoration is about. So I think that upfront defining how you are going to consider something a hectare under restoration, and then providing a model that's based on that definition. So that might be if you're working with smallholder farmers, and it might be saying that, every farmer who has more than a certain number of trees planted on their land, we're going to consider that land part of a hectare under restoration. Or if you're working, at a very large scale, where the intention of the project is to improve the water quality of an entire watershed. And this doesn't sound like it applies to your project specifically, it's kind of more generally. But if the goal is at the watershed level, and if the intervention is being applied at a relatively consistent density across an entire watershed, then maybe the watershed is your area under restoration. I think specifically for working at a model that's agroforestry and with a lot of smallholder farmers, practically speaking, what the team that I'm on is doing is, if the average size of, like going by the average size of the plot of land per each smallholder farmer. So if the average size of the plot of land is around half a hectare, or a hectare, kind of accepting that, because like you said, if you're planting maybe a windbreak here, or some trees scattered amongst food crops here, or a couple of trees on a compound here, it doesn't necessarily make sense to draw around just like maybe the 20 meters where that tree is. And so I think, I apologize, I'm being long-winded, I'm really bad with this, but I think you need to take into account what are the goals and how distributed or focused the impacts are, and be really clear about what your definition is of a hectare under restoration. I don't think we're ever going to be able to have an 100% consistent definition of what that means, because it is so dependent on your goals and your scale. But I think if you are defining that up front and being clear about what goes into that definition, that's what matters.
So if I can make a short suggestion, what came to me and from all of this is the combination of numbers and actually telling what you do. When you talk to us right now, you told us, I plant trees on the boundaries. That's an important data point. So maybe you can combine that with, we've worked with 500 farmers with that manage over 1,000 hectares where we've planted 10,000 trees. And I'm making all the numbers up. And then you can say that's an average of 50 trees per farmer. I don't know, but I feel like if you put some of the numbers together, then it will start to tell that story, you know, about what the boundary trees look like. And then you can even tell a story underneath it. So again, how we were talking about having maybe an impact page on your website. The purpose might be because you cannot tell your impact with one number, but maybe like a story of numbers. And so then you can maybe have a picture of some of the boundaries, like one of the boundaries that you've planted. And then you can say the benefits our farmers are talking about. And then you can bullet point it and say, their cows like to go in the shade, you know, maybe windbreak, less erosion. They can sell me the moringa every year. And so far, something else that's really good for the entrepreneurs here, every entrepreneur, if you are buying products from farmers, from smallholders, you can take your revenue, you can take your costs of purchasing from your financials. So say you spent $100,000 buying stuff from smallholder farmers. You can say, and it is true, that your company has put $100,000 into the local economy through those 500, let's say, farmers that you've been buying from. So there's all sorts of ways, but I would just want to emphasize the fact that at the end of the day, you can bring together different maps, pictures, and numbers. And that's true for everybody who's on this call today. Darby, did anything resonate with you there? I'm always thinking how to market this. So I'm bringing a business angle point of view to it.
That is a great point. And I think clearly showing my biases as a monitoring, GIS geek and not a business person. But I think that is a great point that sometimes one number is not enough. And so it's good to be able to combine multiple numbers to tell a fuller story of what you're doing.
Yeah, and that's why this is on your About Us page, because it might take a long time to put together, but the people who want to know will read through it and like it. And now not everybody's going to go there. You're going to have people who just want to buy your moringa, and that's great. But then you're going to have investors, maybe social investors want to care about this. You're going to have grant-making organizations that are going to care about this. And guess what? These are the people who are also making your business work. So this is hopefully a lesson for everyone. I wonder if we can go to the last question of the three, and then I think we might have to transition to a little bit more of our final session here. So I want to invite Matthews to come with his question. Matthews, are you unable to unmute yourself?
Yeah, good evening.
Perfect.
It's so dark here, so it's late, and I'm just using a solar light, so it's too dark. Yeah, so now I'll go back to my question. I think my question is our organization, we are working with cooperatives and just to empower them in terms of restoration projects. So now we don't have a nursery that we get the seedlings from. We get from and buy from our partners. Then we empower the cooperatives so that they can also grow. It's one thing that through this cooperative, we understand that they have high impact in terms of reducing the cutting of trees for charcoal, a stamina system that we call in Zambia, the stamina system where people they cut for agriculture. Now my question is, how do we monitor the restoration of progress? Because most of this, what we do is we have 10 cooperatives that are under us, whom we empower with these seedlings. So, for example, last year we gave about 14,000 seedlings for palm trees. So these palm trees we gave through the cooperative. So this cooperative, we are getting the number, then they were able now to distribute to their members. So now, how do we monitor the progress in terms of survival rate? Because it's very difficult. Some they stay in far flung areas that it's very costly for us to go with our motorbikes to just to go and monitor. But now the question is, how do we monitor the progress and also the restoration part of that project? So that's my question, since we are working with cooperatives.
I wonder if I just, before you go, I just want to hear what kind of trees were they again? I couldn't hear it, Matthews. What kind of trees?
Yes, we provide the type of trees. We provide avocado. We also provide palm trees. We also provide mango, because we understand that in our areas, palm trees, they do very well. And when we provide this, we understand that there is a ZAM farm where they can now sell these products of this farm,
Okay.
which means if each farmer is going to get
Okay.
a
And
net
then-
income.
All right, one more question is, what kind of crops are most of the farmers generally growing before you give them trees? Just to understand a little bit more about the land.
Okay, so generally, the type of crops that farmers grow here is mostly is maize.
Okay.
They grow
nice.
maize and millet.
Okay.
And this millet, they go through cutting of trees. Maybe they cut around 2 hectares. Then they gather the branches together. Then they put they sow the millet. So which is now more leads to more degraded of this land. Because
So you're saying that a lot of
Yes, I would
farmers
agree.
are actually deforesting land in order to cut the maize and millet? Is that what you're saying?
yes.
Okay, and what country are you from?
Zambia.
Zambia. Okay, thanks. That's all my questions. I'll pass it back to Darby. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matthews. I think my audio was having a little trouble, so I just want to make sure I understand. So you're saying that the business model you work with is you provide seedlings, maybe in a couple central locations, to empower a bunch of different individual farmers or communities to go out to their own lands and plant those trees. And you're interested because, you know, many different people are taking the trees, they're going to a lot of different locations. You're interested in understanding the survival rate, but it's difficult because the trees are really, really dispersed. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Because they're looking at if we give this branch to maybe 400 farmers, then that farmer they don't live in the same area. For example, they live in different areas, but in the same district, but in the different villages. Now they also plant that trees in different their farms in different farms. So how do we monitor them in terms of survival rate?
Yeah. Okay. This is another good. None of these questions have easy answers. Everything depends on context and on your project. I will say a lot of projects that I've been working with have a similar model to this, and they're harder to monitor, full stop. Some strategies that I think have worked well for some projects in this situation are using mobile apps to go out and go to those locations and take geotagged photos of trees, because that can be a quick and simple and easy way to understand if that tree is surviving, and to be able to go back to locations where you've previously planted trees. So I would look into maybe apps that allow for taking geotagged photos, such as the tree tracker app. I would say also, and this is more of a business model thing, so I don't know how attainable this is, but some projects have had success with models where they, on a part-time basis, hire like tree trackers, who are people that are employed to go out to revisit these tree locations. So they go out and they take pictures of these trees or a certain percentage of these trees after they were planted. And then they're also contracted to go out and take pictures of those trees at specific intervals. So maybe every 6 months, maybe every year. It depends on the type of tree and on the landscape. And so the model is like a pay to grow model. So these tree trackers get paid when they initially plant the trees, but when they go back out and show that the trees are still surviving. So there becomes added incentive to care for those trees and to, do things to make sure that they're going to survive to that next tracking period, whether that is watering, whether that is making sure that livestock are not able to graze on those trees. And so this can look different depending on your business model. So it sounds like the individual farmers are the one planting these trees in this case, rather than like kind of central people that work for your organization. However, an app like Green Stand that could even allow these farmers to potentially use the app and take pictures of their trees. This could be a way of monitoring this very distributed model, or potentially, employing people on a part-time or a full-time basis to go out and to track those trees. That's a model that's been successful for some projects that are similar, or that sound similar.
Okay, well, I want to say thank you to everybody who asked these really, really tough questions. I think that a lot of the questions that were answered today, I asked today, are actually a little bit, what do you call this, representative questions that many people have. We've got people who are planting trees with different farmers all over. We have people who are not, who are integrating trees into the landscape in maybe less traditional ways, or there's just so many ways to do it. And so we just kind of scratched the surface here. We are providing links to a lot of the tools that Darby talked about, and it will take some time to probably go through the tool and see which ones work for you. But I don't think, if you just start and give yourself an hour to check out the Restoration Monitoring Tools website and to click around and try the different options and read about some of the tools, you can try one or two that you think might work for you. Just based on this call today, I might suggest people to look at the Green Stand Tree Tracker, because I've heard that being mentioned as something that has a lot of capabilities for field use as well. So I think maybe at this time, we want to thank Darby. Darby, you're invited to stay. You're invited to leave if you need to as well. But I think we all want to thank you so much. Anybody who's available, go ahead and put that clap button as the reaction. But it was a really informative session. I think inspiring to let us see what we can do. I might want to pass the microphone to Samuel at this point, who can help us transition to the second part of our session today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amanda, and equally, thanks so much, Darby, for taking us through that quite exciting session. I've never seen a session with a lot of comments, a lot of questions coming in. So it shows quite a lot of interest from the participants here. So our regards, Darby. Yeah, so now we are going to transition to the next session, and hopefully you can hear me very well. We have come to the end of phase 1 of 2023 Land Accelerator cohort. It's just the other day that we started, and look at us now. Here we are with a few minutes to go before we officially close the 2023 phase 1 program. But it has been quite an exciting journey. Hopefully you enjoyed the session. I've been receiving a lot of comments, a lot of feedback that this has been one of those intensive engagement that you have taken part. And hopefully this has been on the positive end. So at this point, to close, we are going to have a few remarks from a few individuals, both from WRI and also our partners, Barker Fund, Fledge, but also the African Union. So allow me at this particular moment to invite Rekia from Barker Fund, who has journeyed with us, to make a few remarks. And then after that, I'm going to invite Luni. Rekia, are you around?
Hi, Samuel. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Okay. I was very worried about the connection because I'm actually on the continent at the moment. I am in Niger, visiting some company and some funds. And so it's very, very excited to be able to go through this journey on the other side, right? I'm usually based in New York. And usually it's 11 o'clock in the morning and I'm awake and everything is great. And now being here on the continent where it's mid-afternoon to go through the session was quite interesting. But I did enjoy the presentation from Darby. So thank you, Darby. In terms of closing remarks, it's just been an incredible journey, getting to know some of you on this Land Accelerator, from the beginning, reading your application and then getting to see you here during the session. And then now that I'm in Niger, having actually met some of you in person, those who are based here. It just amazes me how much you all are able to do, given the context of where you operate. As an example, I met with one of the organization, previous Land Accelerator alumni this morning, called ANAP, and we've been talking for 2 years. And my understanding of what they do was much more clear today when I was able to meet them in person and meet the rest of the team and kind of see in person what it is that they actually do and how is it that they're fighting against deforestation in Niger. And for me, you know, that's what I will take away, that the opportunity that I would love to have is to meet all of you, all 100 of you in person, because I think once we meet in person, there's so much we get in terms of the value that you do and how you're building your companies, but that's not available. So what I will encourage everyone is to take the opportunity to make that clear to the second application, right? If you're applying to be a top 15, make sure that we get a sense of really what it is, the work that you do and the real impact you're having on the ground. Take time to work on that application. Because again, you know, we would love to meet each one of you in person to be able to assess that, but we don't get to do that. There isn't enough resources to do that. But we do get an opportunity during the top 15, which is the in-person, the top 15 get to do in-person boot camp in the future, where we get to meet in person and meet more of you. So if you, what I will leave with you is apply for phase 2. If you believe that, you know, you have what it takes to actually win, but also take time to make sure that you explain and come across what you do so that we can meet you in person, because each time we meet entrepreneurs in person, at least for us, we're very excited. We learn more and we get really encouraged to want to fund and support your work. So, you know, thank you everyone for participating. Again, we're here for you, especially for the Francophone participant. If you have a question, make sure you apply to phase 2, and we look forward to meeting some of you in Malawi this year. So thank you, Samuel. Thank you, Amanda, and thank you, the whole team.
Thank you so much, Rekia, and equally, we really appreciate your contribution to this program, working with our brothers and sisters from the Francophone countries. Indeed, you've been a great support to them. So thank you so much, and hopefully we can see more getting financing from you. Yeah, maybe that's a plus.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rekia. Now, let me invite our lead trainer for the Land Accelerator from French, Luni.
Hi, everybody. It's been a few weeks since I got to speak to you, and I will echo. Rekia is still pinned on the picture. There you go. I have the same feeling as Reiki. I wish I could be in the room with all 100 of you and dive in. As part of the process to get from phase 1 to phase 2, yes, there's going to be fewer people. But the process to get there is, I don't know if Amanda announced this yet, right? You are going to be submitting 2 things that I taught you how to do, a pitch deck and a site visit video. And I invited you when I taught you how to do a pitch deck to send me a pitch deck to review. And I highly encourage anybody who wants to get through this next funnel to get from phase 1 to phase 2 to send me your pitch deck to review. I'm happy to bias this and help you make it much better so that more of the crowd here that's picking the phase tours likes it. And so again, I put my LinkedIn connection on there. That's the best way to connect to me, because then we'll be connected forever. And from there, you can get my email address and send me your pitch deck. And I promise anyone who sends me it will get the feedback. And I will warn you that if you haven't watched the lesson or learned the lesson, your feedback might just be the go back and watch the lesson. Same thing on site visit videos. If you have one, send it to me. I'll give you comments. There's time to edit it before you submit it. So I'll just leave you with that. And I'll see some of you in Lilongwe later.
Thank you so much, Looney. And indeed, thank you for dreaming to have the land exeter. And we are in our 5th cohort, as you can see, with quite an exciting team.
Fifth African cohort.
Yeah, the 5th African cohort. And maybe just for your information, Looney, so that you can be able to see the progress that you've been able to make this year. Out of 103 that actually subscribed for the lesson, 100 have actually been able to go through almost all the sessions. They have actually made that attendance criteria. So it's quite exciting to see what the land exeter is actually unfolding. So thank you so much for also being part of this journey with us. And now we'll transition to hear remarks from the African Union. And I will kindly request Fabiana, if you can put the recording from the AUDN pad so that I can be able to listen. Fabiana, when you're ready, so we are listening to Mamadou, who is the AFR 100 manager.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I am delighted to have the opportunity to address you today and share my thoughts on the exciting without any doubt making a significant impact on the continent forest and agriculture landscape. And I commend all of you, our restoration champions, people from the AUDA NEPAD AFA 100 Secretariat, Rooney from Fledge, Rakia from Barca Fund, and Amanda, Fabiana, and Samuel from WRI. Our partners of SIDA Sweden, Mitsubishi Corporation, and all other partners involved in this endeavor. First and foremost, let me express my enthusiasm for the Land Accelerator Africa 2023 cohort. You are the first cohort to maintain 100 participants attendance every Tuesday. This platform brings together some of the brightest minds and most innovative solutions to address the pressing challenges faced by Africa forest landscape in agriculture. The commitment and passion of the entrepreneurs and innovators involved in this program are truly inspiring, and I am excited to witness the transformative outcomes they will achieve. One aspect that particularly stands out to the emphasis on land restoration. Land degradation has been one of the major issues across the continent, leading to reduced productivity, food insecurity, and environmental degradation. By focusing on sustainable land and water management practices and promoting regenerative agriculture, the Land Accelerator Africa 2023 is paving the way for a more resilient and prosperous future. This holistic approach not only benefits farmers and communities, but also contribute to climate change mitigation and adaptation and biodiversity conservation. Furthermore, I am thrilled to see the integration of technology and innovation within the Land Accelerator Africa 2023 cohort. The advancements in digital agriculture, precision farming, and data analytics have the potential to revolutionize the sector and address critical challenges such as access to markets, financial inclusion, and climate smart farming practices. By harnessing the power of technology, the participants in this program are not only improving their own businesses, but also driving progress at a larger scale. Collaboration is key in tackling complex issues like FLR and agriculture development. The Land Accelerator Africa 2023 cohort serves as a platform for networking, knowledge exchange, and partnership. It brings together entrepreneurs, investors, policymakers, and experts, fostering an ecosystem of support and innovation. This collaborative approach is vital for scaling up sustainable agriculture practices, ensuring a long-term success of these transformative solutions. In conclusion, the Land Accelerator Africa 2023 holds immense promise for the continent, FLR, and agriculture sector, in addition to its contribution to our member countries' target to AFR 100. Through its focus on land restoration, integration of technology, and emphasis on collaboration, this program is driving positive change and paving the way for a more sustainable and prosperous future. I have no doubt that the entrepreneurs and innovators involved will make significant strides in transforming Africa and agriculture landscapes, benefiting both farmers, youth and women, and the environment. In a few months, you will receive your certificate, participate in the bootcamp, and for those who make up on top 15, receive the your startup grants. If you have any further requests from the AFR 100, please reach out to Teco, who is with you today. I thank you.
Yeah, thanks to Mamadou in absentia. He would have wished to join us, but he has traveled to Spain. But we do have Teco from AUD Nepad. Maybe Teco can come in with a few remarks. Teco, are you able to hear me?
Hi, Samuel. I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, feel free to make a few remarks on behalf of AUD Nepad now that you're here.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and apologies. I'm in a restaurant. There's load shedding in the area that I'm at. I took my kids to Kruger National Park this week. So the guest house we're at doesn't have electricity at the moment. I would like to make a correction. As long as you meet the requirements of the top 100, you will get a startup grant. It's not only for the top 15, even the top 100 will get. But what a journey it has been, and thank you so much to all of you for staying with us and for really making sure that the continent will reach its ambitious target of 100 million hectares by 2030. So if you would like us to showcase your project and feature it on the AFR 100 website, I did put a text earlier with my email or my WhatsApp if you need to get clarification. So do that, but we are very appreciative that you were with us, and we hope you learned a great deal. You will be able to now pitch your business to various investors apart from what we had presented to you. So it's not the end of the road. You are now the alumni of the Land Accelerator, and I'm pretty sure all of you will join back once again when we will be presenting on the information regarding the payment of the grants. But other than that, I'm thankful that those in Southern Africa, they were able to brave the cold throughout the rest of the program. I know even Johannesburg received this first snow in a decade yesterday. So we really appreciate the time that you put in at all times. So thank you very much. And to all the team, I appreciate your resourcefulness as always. And I'm sorry that I'm always club touring, so I'm not able to join each and every session. But I know the cohort was in capable hands with you guys. And thank you very much, everyone. Nkosi.
Yeah, thank you so much, Teko, and indeed pass our regards to AUD and the part management. Thanks so much for the collaboration that we continue to enjoy. Yeah, we want to be joined by Dr. Susan, who is our Director for Vital Landscape, as earlier communicated through email, but unfortunately she could not be able to join us as she fell sick. But we are lucky to have our Senior Technical Advisor for WRI, who is going to give final remarks on behalf of Susan and officially close the phase 1 of the 2023 cohort for us. So at this particular moment, allow me to invite Peter Dunda to make a few remarks on behalf of WRI. Yes, Peter.
Thank you. Thank you, Samuel. I am trying to make sure you can see me here. Samuel, that can see me well?
Yes, you can see you, Peter.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Samuel. Thank you again. My name is Peter Ndunda. I am a senior associate at the World Resources Institute. I'm based here in Nairobi, Kenya. I want to start by saying that since 2015, WRI has been a very close partner of the African Union Development Agency, the AUD and EPAD. And together we've built AFR 100. And it's been very exciting to see this initiative grow from its origins at the COP21 in Paris and growing into the continental powerhouse that it is today. And as Mamadou highlighted earlier on, we have about 34 countries that have committed to AFR 100, with more joining every single year. And we have an ambitious restoration target of about 130 million hectares that have been committed so far by these countries. Now, implementation of this ambitious target will require that we accelerate implementation. We will need to do more, and we will need to do faster. And so we will need to mobilize and connect amazing restoration champions like you with technical skills to build your capacity to implement at scale to be able to achieve these ambitious targets that we are talking about. We will also need to mobilize and connect restoration champions with finance, the money that you need to expand your businesses and to attract investors. Earlier today, I talked quite a bit with some of my colleagues who've been with you in the various sessions throughout the 12 land accelerator sessions that you've been taken through in this court. And I was very impressed and encouraged to see the growing list of applicants over the years since this program was started. And so first, I want to say, I am very impressed to note that 76% of these 34 countries that I talked about in AFR 100 countries are represented in this court. This is very impressive. Secondly, I want to say congratulations to each one of you for your successful application to join this program. And then third, I want to reiterate our commitment as WRI and our partners to partner and to support you, the restoration businesses, and your amazing work to continue growing your businesses and scaling your restoration activities towards achieving these ambitious AFR 100 target of 130 million hectares across the continent. Number 4, I also want to say a big congratulations, because I've heard everyone here say that this is the last session for this phase. And so I want to say big congratulations to each one of us, each one of you amazing restoration champions, for completion of this first phase of the 2023 Land Accelerator Program. Congratulations. And then lastly, on behalf of WRI, I also want to wish you all, the amazing restoration champions here today, the very best, the very best in your applications. As submit your application for this second phase. We want to walk this journey with you. We want to support you. Please go ahead and do what our colleagues have agreed with you. We are ready to support you. We want to support you. We want to work with you. So thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for every good work you're doing there. We are extremely excited, and we're looking forward to working with you. I also want, on behalf of WRI, to say thank you to, number 1, our funding partners, the CEDA, BMU, BMZ, MCHF, to Mitsubishi Foundation. I also want to say thank you to our technical partners, AUDN, EPAD, FLEDGE, Baca Fund. Thank you so much for the amazing partnership that we've enjoyed together. Number 3, I want to say a big thank you to the trainers who've taken these amazing restoration champions through the last 12 sessions. Thank you, Stella. Thank you, Sami. Thank you, Edna. Teko, thank you very much from wherever you are today. Thank you, Gilbert and Amanda and Anais. Thank you so much. You are all appreciated. Number 4, I want to say thank you to amazing people. Without them, some of us would have been lost. And so thank you very much, our amazing translators. Joel and your team, we thank you. We appreciate you. Thank you very much. And then lastly, but certainly not the least, to my WRI colleagues, the amazing team that has been leading this work from WRI, led by Amanda, Fabiana, Karaya, Dasien, Samuel, and Gilbert. Thank you. Thank you so much for the work that you do. Thank you for walking this journey with these amazing restoration businesses. We are extremely grateful. Thank you all. Thank you so much. And with those few remarks, I officially declare this 2023 Land Accelerator first phase closed. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Peter, and pass our regards to WRI management who has made this possible, to Wanjira, to Dr. Susan, to Sean, and everybody who has empowered us to be able to run this program effectively. So thank you so much. I wish everyone all the very best. Sorry, we are 5 minutes past time, but allow me to also thank most sincerely to all the trainers who have been able to be part of this program. We had actually invited most of them, so accept our appreciation. Maybe back to you, Amanda, for maybe a final celebration mode, if you have any. But thank you to everyone, and hopefully we'll continue to see each other on Thursday session. Back to you, Amanda.
Okay, everybody. So we want to thank you. We want to invite everybody who wants to turn on your screens. We can try and take a few screenshots. I would invite anybody to take screenshots for your own sake. but turn on your screens so we can see everybody. And we just want to take a second to celebrate you exactly what Peter, what Samuel and everybody's saying. This is honestly, it's the first time that we've had so many complete our class. We were really excited about having 85 complete last year. It's amazing to have 100 people have at least 75% of the classes that they joined us. Actually, every single year, I know that we are, improving the content we have here. Thanks to you guys, thanks to all the feedback from the groups before. And we're actually really excited to incorporate some of the alumni into our programming on Thursdays. That was the first time we did it last year, and we decided to do it this year. So just want to say thank you guys for being a part of this community, and remind everybody to check out everything on Restore Forward. It's not going to go away. And there's everything there from the directory. So everybody here, you can see what they're working on and reach out to people via their email, using the directory that you can find in Restore Forward, using all the different recordings in the past. But also we're going to keep doing this. And we invited, as I saw a comment from Falk, we invited our alumni to join us this year. And some of our alumni were joining us this year, because you see we have usually about 130 people joining us. So we always are welcoming the alumni, not only as speakers, but also as people who can say, hey, I wanted to learn more about this topic. I want to join it again. So with that, I think people go ahead and take some screenshots. I want to end with, and I don't know if people want to say hi. I want to take a little screenshots. And I'm trying to take a screenshot myself. We'll see what we can find. But basically, thank you guys so much for being a part of this. And we're going to keep in touch on WhatsApp. So WhatsApp is something that you can always use. People have been using WhatsApp throughout the program, but you also can use it after the program. Like, we have 5 WhatsApp groups for Africa, and they're all active. So we want to be able to keep you guys active on WhatsApp as well as Restore Forward. We are, yes. I don't know, anybody else? Let me see. If anybody else wants to say, actually, Anais, you're here. I don't know, Anais, if you wanted to say anything with us. Yeah, I know, I'm looking at you now. But besides that, then everybody, we'll wish you luck, and we're getting really excited for all of your presentations. Please send things to Lumi. He sent you his link on the chat box. We'll remind you in the WhatsApp as well. The sooner you send it to him, the sooner you get feedback and that you can change it. And we're really excited to see some of your presentations. Again, if you can, with the PowerPoint presentations, please check out the template that we've got. It's all about trying something new. One thing we've all learned is innovation and learning. We get out of our everyday experiences and get a little bit curious. We can learn new things that's going to make our businesses more competitive. So really excited to see you guys. I just want to invite y'all to unmute yourself if you want to, and just our communal goodbye. And we'll be seeing you guys in the future on Thursday.
Bye bye.
Thank you guys.
Bye bye. Stay safe, everyone. Congrats and bye.
I'll miss you.
Love you. The end.
All right, bye. You guys.
Bye.